Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And joining me now is Jeff Dunitz. Let me move over.
Hello.
There's Jeff.
Vamp for a second because I can't hear you. I have to do something.
So
there
we're
we go.
vamping.
Okay.
We're vamping. Vamping. Well,
You can unvamp now.
I can unvamp Jeff Dunitz from
Hi, guys.
lidblog.com. You know Jeff. Jeff's in the chat room. Jeff's on the Facebook side. Jeff's everywhere.
Like savoir faire, I'm everywhere.
Oh, man. What was that from? I remember that.
It was a cartoon.
Yeah, it was a cartoon, but I don't remember which cartoon it was.
Oh, well.
Was it Ratfink? Or Batfink, rather?
No.
No. It was something else. Somebody's going to have to remember that for us. Put it up in face. If you can remember that it's savoir faire, he's everywhere. If you remember that reference, make sure you put it in the comments.
Whoever gets that right gets a free subscription to the Lid Blog mailing list.
There you go. It's a contest. First person to come up with that. All right. Jeff, we got a lot of things to discuss today. First off, we got to talk about your video about media bias against Trump. We were talking a little bit about this with Dwayne, but this is it's a big topic. Tell us a little bit about the video over at lidblog.com.
Well, I'm not big on making videos because I don't do it well, but the whole thing has bothered me. It's 100% true that Trump said something stupid when he said there's good on both sides. Because, at least in my opinion, anybody who marches with someone holding a Nazi flag is not good.
Or while they're saying Jews will not replace us, or
right.
blood and soil,
Or
blood and soil,
KKK.
blood and soil.
If they're ugly and wearing one of those things over their faces, that's different. But there is bad on both sides. And even in that crazy press conference, he said that he talked about the white nationalists and the Nazis being bad.
Wait a minute. I have to interrupt you because I think we have an answer to this.
Okay.
Mr. Fastbucks says it was Klondike Cat.
Yep.
There you go. Mr. Fastbucks gets the free subscription. Matthew Dill, also known as Tuptian, had said Pink Panther, but I knew it wasn't Pink Panther because there wasn't a lot of dialogue in Pink Panther.
Right. It was just...
I think it's Klondike Cat. I think that's right. So there you go. Anyway.
Google it after the show. But either way, Fastbooks gets on the mailing list if he's not anyway. But they were overreacting to everything.
Yeah.
I think so. So last night, Sean Hannity did a thing where he showed that all the times Trump bashed the KKK, bashed the neo-Nazis, etc. And I took the part that had before Charlottesville. So before he was politically forced to say something. And then on the back end, I put all the haters that supported Hillary and the media never asked her about. And I put their hate speech, like Al Sharpton. Okay, remember there's a great video of Al Sharpton on the Morton Downey Jr. show calling all the gay people faggots.
Yeah.
Things like that. And it ends with the Grand Wizard of the California KKK supporting Hillary. And
Yeah.
if they were going to be fair, they would have bashed her too, or confronted her with those questions.
Yep.
And it kind of leans into something else we were going to talk about, because in my mind, I'm getting really upset. You know, Ed, I write a lot about anti-Semitism and things like that. And all these people, these Johnny-come anti-Semitism latelys, that all of a sudden these news people care about anti-Semitism, when for the last 8 years, we had the most anti-Semitic president, at least in my lifetime.
Well, at least anti-Israel, right?
No. I'm not talking anti-Israel. I'm talking about when the Presbyterian Church sold land in Jerusalem to the Jews. And Obama flipped out and said Jews can't live there. They didn't get it from the Palestinians. The Presbyterians sold them. It was a cash deal. When he had a conference call about the Iran deal, the senior vice president for the Jewish Federation in North America, he tweeted out that that Jews are leading, according to Obama, Jews are leading the effort to kill Iran deal, and they're the same people who led us into the Iraq War. Bring back that old anti-Semitic canard that
Yep.
Jews pushed us into the Iraq War.
Yep.
And that's not anti-Israel. That's anti-Semitic. Okay, when Obama said he supported Occupy Wall Street, well, they walked around with swastikas on all their posters. It didn't bother him.
Right.
Or do you know who his first presidential honors were to?
No, I don't.
Bishop Tutu, who said, Jews think they own God. And Mary Robinson, who ran this whole big anti-Semitic thing in Darfur.
Well, yeah.
Nobody wondered about any of that stuff.
No, because it's a different paradigm.
Because it
Media
was
bias. It's media bias.
A Democratic president, and let's face it, if you're more the traditional religions, no one cares about it.
So, to that point, then, going back to what Trump said about Charlottesville, which is kind of what prompted a lot of the stuff that's been going on for the last couple of weeks here. You mentioned to me that a coalition of major rabbinical groups, the Central Conference of American Rabbis.
Groups from 3 different branches, from the conservative, reform, and reconstructionists. Okay, and they had a meeting with Trump that was supposed to be, they do it annually with the president, and they said because of Charlottesville, we don't want to meet with him.
Okay.
They never said anything about any of the other anti-Semitism, but even worse, at least from a Jewish theological point of view, we're coming to the high holidays. Okay, and that's the time we're supposed to meet with people, say we're sorry, things like that. And they didn't even talk to him, tell them how it bothered them, and give him the opportunity to say, I'm sorry.
Well,
from a theological point of view, that's wrong.
That's a theological issue. It's a theological issue in Christianity too. Is that you're supposed? Yeah, absolutely. No, so I'm agreeing with you. It would be it's a theological problem in all of these different contexts.
Right, because you got to give someone the opportunity. But beyond that, between you, me, and everyone who's listening, guys, those 3 branches of Judaism, are very liberal. Or like I like to say, is they worship at the golden calf of the Democratic Party politics.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of that going on too.
I'm sorry?
There's a lot of that going on too, Jeff.
Well, yeah. The Orthodox rabbis sent him a letter because they were upset. You want to be upset? Be upset. But they didn't cancel the phone call.
Right. That's, to me, I think you don't turn an opportunity to dialogue, right? I mean, and
that's the whole thing.
See, this to me is an opportunity. If you're really that upset about what happened, well, here's your opportunity. You're going to get on a conference call with the President of the United States. You have an opportunity. This guy is rather famously open to suggestion, right? I mean,
and he also is a believer in faith, unlike the last president.
At any rate, this is something this is an opportunity. It's the reason why people say, well, this came up during the Obama administration too, in a different context. A handful of conservative commentators got invited for an off-the-record discussion with Obama at the White House. This is a few years ago, right? Bill Kristol was one of them, and I know people are very unhappy with Bill at the moment, but Bill Kristol, a few others, but I remember Bill being one of them. And
I think Krauthammer was one of them too.
Krauthammer may have been one of them as well. And there were a lot of conservatives who were complaining about this, saying, well, you're selling out. And my response to that was, when the President of the United States gives you an opportunity to dialogue with him, you take that opportunity. And
Well, that and it's the president of the United States.
Right. There's
If
a
you're
certain respect for the
patriotic as you
office.
say you are.
Yeah. There's a certain respect for the office that goes along
Right.
with that. And if
And it's free food.
and yeah, try the meatloaf. Apparently, it's delicious at the White House. I'm a big fan of meatloaf, by the way. Both the singer and
Try
the food.
Tip the waitress.
I'm here all week, folks. I'll be here all next week. Actually, I won't be here all next week. I'll be at the fair all next week. But
See?
there you go. All right. So, getting back to the media bias aspect of this, does it extend to media in Israel? Because there was a very interesting moment with the U.S. Ambassador Daniel Friedman, and I'm sure you caught this, where it was I think a couple of days ago, where they buttonholed him about the Charlottesville response. What's that?
Something like, what did he say? It was not good, or it wasn't fine.
It wasn't fine. Yeah, the response
That's
wasn't
all he
fine.
said.
It was all he said. But, if it was Mike Pence, and this is the point I was making in the thing, is if it was Mike Pence, Mike Pence would have found a way to wrap that reporter around in all sorts of different ways, right, and answer the question that he wanted to answer, and not the question that the reporter was asking. Daniel Friedman doesn't have that type of experience. But I was just wondering.
Until he became ambassador.
Right. He doesn't have a ton of media experience, and but I was wondering if Trump was going to be unhappy with Friedman and maybe think about replacing him over this, and saying that he shouldn't, because again, A, Friedman is not Mike Pence, but also B, when you're talking about neo-Nazis, there's two countries that are going to be super sensitive about this. One is Germany and the other one's Israel. And you have to give them some sort of an answer when they ask you in these places. And so I thought he did about as best as he could.
Well,
but I thought it was
I
an
agree
interesting
with him.
moment.
It wasn't good.
It wasn't
good. Fine.
Right. But,
You know?
but
And anybody who has a relative with a number tattooed on their arm, well,
right.
You know what? It affects you a little more, no matter where you live.
I agree. I completely agree. It should affect, and we should be the number 3 country over here because, maybe 4 after a tie for Britain and the Soviet Union. but exactly. I mean, this is an ideology that that hundreds of thousands of Americans died to defeat. And so we should be sensitive about this, and we should rebuke it at every possible opportunity. And I thought that Trump really screwed that up. On the other hand, the meltdown that we've been seeing, I mean, I think it's worthy of criticism. What I think, though, is that the media bias and the media hysteria on this has been so bad that you end up having to sort of halfway defend the guy just because it's so overwhelming and hysterical that it requires a response.
I couldn't begin to write about it until Sunday because I was really agonizing about it for a week.
It was tough.
And after I was done, my conservative friends called me a rhino.
Yeah.
And the Jewish friends that were even moderate said I was a sellout.
Yeah.
Because I took an approach that, you know what he said was bad, that one line, but nothing else was bad. And they're overreacting.
Yep. Yeah.
But
again, I think you can criticize the guy without saying that, everything is a complete disaster. Everything is the last straw. It gets tiresome.
Even
criticize him and move on.
Speeches this week, right? And
right.
they're talking about like he's Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and a third guy, right?
I remember reading that book, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and that third guy. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But the thing is that at his base, Trump is a negotiator from Queens. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, my wife's in real estate, so I see a lot of these types. And it was the same way in the ad business when I would be negotiating, $1 million deals with media companies. Okay, it's who's got the biggest private parts. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yep. It's a measuring contest.
Testosterone.
Right.
And that's what Trump is pulling back from.
Yep. Yeah.
But that's him. Okay, it's funny because he was talking about in one of the clips on the video, he was talking about would he rebuke them? But he sounded like a guy from Queens. Would I rebuke them? Okay, I rebuked them.
Yeah,
Because but that's what people voted for.
he's an outer borough guy. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. All right, I want to talk about one more topic here.
Sure.
And that is, I found this really interesting, right? This is from a couple of days ago. The Netanyahu government is going to arrange I guess, a government-sponsored Christian media summit in Jerusalem. It's going to be the first of its kind. Now, I've been to conferences. Shimon Peres, the late Shimon Peres, sponsored several annual Israeli presidential conferences, is what they were called. They one under the banner Tomorrow, but they were also called the Israeli presidential conferences. They
send the goy to the Jerusalem one, and I don't get to go to Rome.
Yeah, it's who you know, man.
Rook.
It's who you know. I went twice. Scott Johnson went once. He may have gone twice, in fact, as well. And they were interesting. They were fascinating. But they were basically like CPAC isn't even really the right parallel, because CPAC is about a specific political viewpoint. The Israeli presidential conferences was across the spectrum for Israeli politics. And what made them really fascinating was you found out just how far to the left their center is from the American center in politics. What passes for conservative, with the exception of some of the smaller parties, is significantly to the left of the Republican Party, and maybe even a little to the left of the Democratic Party.
Well, you got to understand something. For the first 30 years of its existence, Israel was a socialist country.
Exactly. I mean, so it's fascinating to go through all those things. But what I never saw was a government-sponsored conference that had a particular point of view, and that was specifically aimed at Christian media, right?
Well, that makes so much sense, though.
It does. I mean, it does. For what it's aimed at, it makes sense. I'm curious, though. You know more about Israeli politics than I do.
No, it has nothing to do with Israeli politics. It has to do with American politics.
It has to do with American politics, but it has to do with Israel's standing in American politics. What I'm curious about, though, is whether or not Netanyahu is going to be, whether there's any risk for Netanyahu in basically playing footsie with evangelical media here in the United States. You don't think so?
If it wasn't for, look, Jews who support Israel, they tend to be democratic. And the Democrats know they could do anything they want, and the Jews would still vote for them. So the Republicans, they need the part of their base that is pro-Israel and is keeping Republicans pro-Israel is the evangelical community. If the evangelical community ever switched in terms of not liking Israel, well, guess what? Israel will have no support in the Republican or the Democratic Party.
Right.
So they have to make nicey-nicey with the evangelicals. And I got to tell you something, and I think that's one of the things that's keeping Trump pro-Israel, because the evangelicals are at times more pro-Israel than the Jews.
Well, I think that, and part of that, when I was there in Israel, there was, I mentioned this in the Post, and I would hear a little bit of this when I was talking to just people off the record and sort of in the hallways and stuff like that, and that there is a small amount, I guess, at least, of the suspicion of the motives of evangelicals in Israel, suspicion in Israel of the motives of the evangelicals, because basically what I heard about that from the people who expressed this, which was not very many people, was that the evangelicals really didn't care about Israel as a homeland for the Jews. All they cared about was bringing on Armageddon so that the second coming of Jesus would appear.
Well, not necessarily Armageddon. but they want to protect the Jews. They want to protect Israel as the homeland of the Jews because of the incoming. Supposedly, that's when Jesus is going to come again.
Right, exactly.
So you know what, Ed? If that's what happens, I'm wrong. I mean, like.
But in the meantime, you've got support for the state of Israel, right? I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking too. Was thinking.
And you know what? I've never met an anti-Semitic evangelical.
Yeah, I've never met one either.
You know me for a long time. I tend to hang around people of faith, no matter what their faith is.
Yes.
So if an evangelical is very close to their faith, it makes sense to me. The ones in America that mistrust them are generally the Reform Jews, because they don't like anybody who wears the religion on their shoulder.
Yeah. Well, I got to tell you, there's a lot of people in Christian communities that don't like it either, and
sure.
So,
well, it's like that thing someone says, "Are you Catholic?" He goes, "No, I don't go to." Well, yeah, I'm Catholic. I don't go to church.
Yeah, I kind of know what you're talking about.
And it's the same thing with Jews and shul.
So there you go. So the first Christian Media Summit in Jerusalem. I find it interesting. I think that it'll be interesting to see what happens when people come back from that. I don't know anybody who's involved in this. Apparently, the invitations already went out. They were going through the NRB, which is the religious broadcasters. It's the National Association of Religious Broadcasters, or something like that. National Religious Broadcasters.
You know who's also doing a thing to Israel? The ACU.
Yeah, but see, this is the ACU doing it in conjunction with the Israeli government, or are they doing it with a private organization? See, that's the thing.
It's a private organization, but you're doing a lot of stuff with the Israeli government.
Of course you are. You're going to meet with Israeli government. I mean, but usually these things are sponsored by private organizations, NGOs or nonprofits, but private organizations. That's the reason why I found this one to be a little unusual and worthy of comment, is that the government itself is actually going to be staging this. Netanyahu government is actually going to be setting this thing up. And if it works out well, they're going to do it every year or two, which is, I understand why they're doing it. I think it's actually not a bad idea.
They might be able to visit Netanyahu in jail, but
yeah, I was thinking about that too. Netanyahu might not be around to enjoy these things, but it's probably not a bad idea. The question would be is if Likud lost an election, would it continue past that? That's I think an interesting question.
You know what? I don't know.
In other words, get your junket in now.
I think it's recognizing who your friends are.
Yeah.
Except the left has other goals. The left would give up the Temple Mount like that.
Yeah.
For example. But the thing is that, and part of my argument about Jerusalem is that every Christian should feel that Jerusalem should be part of Israel, that the Temple Mount, because if you're saying that the Temple Mount isn't Jewish, you're saying that Jesus didn't, overturn the money changers' tables.
Yep. Well, there you go.
And I want to be able to go on top of a Temple Mount so I can see if anybody left any coins there.
There you go.
One of those metal detector things.
It's kind of like going into the Trevi Fountain in Rome when nobody's looking and scooping up the coins. By the way, don't do that. There's always somebody looking. There's always somebody looking. So that is not.
Are you kidding? A Jew trying to grab money at the Vatican?
Well, the Trevi Fountain is actually not in the Vatican, but that's
close enough.
That's the fountain where you toss the coin over your shoulder so that you come back. It's actually you toss the coin over your shoulder so that the city of Rome can clean up after the tourists. But either way, it works.
Yeah, and I'm not. I don't do anything weird in a foreign country. It's too scary.
It is very scary.
I wouldn't even touch the statue of Christopher Columbus in Italy if there is one. Although they're going to take down the one in New York.
Yeah, they're going to take down Grant's tomb too. That's the other thing. We're almost out of time.
You know what else they should take down? While they're taking everything down, they should get rid of FDR's memorial.
Yeah. I'm not.
I don't think they should take down anything.
Right.
Okay?
See, this is the thing. You can go back and find things about all of these people. The difference with the Confederate memorials and monuments is that the people who are questionable, who have had questionable episodes in their history, are not being honored for their questionable episodes. I mean, the statue of FDR is not about how he sent the Jews away on the ship to go back to the
ship. Do you know that when it came to the quotas, he didn't fill the quotas because he didn't want to let Jews into the country.
Right.
He killed 200,000 people, and he put all the Japanese Americans into camps.
Exactly. But that's not why he's got a statue there. He's got a statue there because he helped defeat the Germans and the Japanese in World War II. He served 4 terms, the only 4-term president we've ever had and will have, thankfully.
Ed, I don't think they should take down any of them. Okay? I'm starting there. I'm kind of being a little sarcastically overboard.
Right. No, I get it.
And you know what? Anything to Barack Obama, to heck with him. Like I said, he's the most anti-Semitic president in my lifetime.
Fausto is in the Facebook comments. She says they're taking down Grant's tomb. What the hell? Well, it's come up as a suggestion, Faust. I think it's over at the New York Post. You should go read it over at the New York Post.
Sharpton wants to take down the Jefferson Memorial. Right. But the funny thing about Sharpton, let's admit it, he says, I don't want my tax dollars going there. Since when does he pay his tax dollars? Now, it's not
that's an interesting argument.
$1.5 million anymore. It's down to $1.5 million. But give me a break.
That's an interesting argument.
If I owed $1.5 million, okay, I'd be having the prepackaged kosher meals in San Quentin or something.
Well, Jeff, we're gonna have to leave it at that because we're almost out of time. This thing's gonna come to a screeching halt at the 90-minute mark. So, Jeff Dunitz, of course, you can find at lidblog.com. His new site, lidsvids.com. And he's on Twitter, YidWithLid, at YidWithLid. So you can find him there as well. Jeff, thanks so much for being with us today. We'll have you back on soon to talk more about all these fabulous topics.
Okay, man. Thank you. Take care, folks.
All right, folks, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up right now. Big thanks to Jeff Dunitz for being on the show today, and also for all of you fine folks who are listening. We're going to go ahead and play a little walking music right now to... there we go. Not too loud. But I want to thank everybody for being with us today. Matthew Dill coming back, also known as Tuptian. He's in both chat rooms, coming back from a serious accident. Great to see him back. And Matthew, I hope that you're healing up well and you continue to heal well. Fausta Rodriguez-Wertz, Fausta from faustasblog.com, a great Western Hemisphere blog. I read her every single day. You should as well. Keith Dorsett, my goodness, over at, who else? Let's see. Who else has been over here? We've got Kathy York, James Hooker, me. I'm the hot air guy in the comments over on Facebook. Trying to figure out who it was that's liked the show. If you've got likes or loves or hates or angries or whatever, be sure to put those on before you leave today because we like all those emoticons. They're a lot of fun. Who else has been around over on the Ustream side? Cranky T-Rex at crankytrex.blogspot.com. At Cranky T-Rex on Twitter. It should be just crankytrex.blogspot.com for his blog. He's got a great YouTube channel you can find through his blog where he does all of his movie reviews. Find out which movies made him cranky lately over at crankytrex.blogspot.com. Ironcad, Mr. Fastbucks, Prairie Dog SD, the aforementioned Tuptian, Matthew Dill, Jeff Dunitz from lidblog.com and lidsvids.com, Libby Sternberg and Dwayne Generalissimo Patterson at Radio Blogger on Twitter, my guests today. Via Paso at the Ancestral Morrisians, my mom, and the First Mate in the other room, keeping me on the straight and narrow. All right, don't forget, starting on Monday, we will be broadcasting live, I think through Facebook Live. We're going to try to do it through there. From the Minnesota State Fair on AM 1280 The Patriot, 8 to 10 a.m. Central Time. But tune in here if you can't find us. By the way, you can get The Patriot on, I think it's either, I think it's on iHeartRadio. So if you get iHeartRadio on the stream, you can find the Patriot there. But you can also, I think, get it through Facebook, because that's what we're going to try to do. So all next week, 8 to 10 a.m., Monday through Friday next week from the State Fair. Until then, have yourselves a great afternoon and weekend, and don't miss a minute of the Ed Morrissey Show. We'll see you later, folks.